Dino Thunder, power up!
Hello and welcome to an episode of Generation S where we're focusing on the Master Morpher. For those unfamiliar, the Master Morpher was only used in one episode so far. Winter of 2023, it's only been used in one episode by Tommy Oliver, Jason David Frank in Super Ninja Steel. It allowed Tommy to morph into the previous Ranger forms that he had across the board. He was able to morph into any Ranger at any time, which to this point, other than Megaforce, has not been seen in Power Rangers. So it has not been explained how he got this power, who created it, where it came from. None of that has been announced. So what we're going to do today is we're going to jump through the history of Power Rangers, all 29 seasons, because at the time of this recording, Cosmic Fury is still a few months away. We're going to see if we could figure out where this came from. Now, like I said, there's no definitive answer here, so let's have fun. Let's not make it into an argument of who's right, who's wrong. I want to hear the comments if you agree, if you disagree, but this is just our opinion here at Generation S. So we're going to get started. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Season 1, Episode 2. It's important because it's only the second episode, and Billy is here with the communicators. Billy is going to be a vital part of this. Billy did a lot of work with Zordon, with Alpha, with the Command Center, with various Ranger teams. In the second episode, he shows off the communicators, and he's able to teleport to the Command Center. That's in the second episode. So he's been a Ranger for what, a week, give or take? And he's already figuring out this technology. And he's only in high school. So that's the first real point I want to make is Billy already is able to access the Morphin Grid. He's able to figure out how to transport himself and the other Rangers. Other things that Billy did during the Mighty Morphin seasons was when Alpha got damaged by the evil Green Ranger, he repaired him. He repaired the Morphers, he repaired the Zords, he repaired the Command Center. He has extensive experience with that era of Mighty Morphin. When the communicators and the powers were damaged, they were broken, they were not able to teleport to the Command Center, and he created the Rad Bug. It wasn't in a lot of seasons, and for those that are unfamiliar with it, the Rad Bug was essentially that. It was a VW bug, but the Rangers were able to teleport from Billy's house to the Command Center. He's unable to be a Ranger when the Zeo Crystal comes. The Zeo Rangers are created, but it's Billy in the Command Center with Alpha, with Zordon, helping the Zeo Rangers how to use their powers, because they have new powers, they have new Zords. It's different than Mighty Morphin, and on a personal level, I really like Billy in this position of being in the Command Center, being the guy to go to about the tech. And an important part of Zeo and Billy in general is during this time period in Zeo, Billy's unable to morph into any type of Ranger. He was injured. The Gold Rangers being teased in Zeo. A lot of the time, it's hinted at that Billy would disappear when the Gold Ranger came out. You know, Gold Ranger was a Ranger that was already established, different from the White Ranger or the Green Ranger. They knew that this Ranger was, in fact, on their side. They did not know who he was at the time. And it was hinted at, really hinted at, that Billy might be this Gold Ranger. Turns out it was not him. It was a new character called Treya Triforia. Long story short, they bring back Jason, the OG Red Ranger, and Billy's just kind of left there. But when Billy would disappear, he would constantly say, oh, I was working on something. I was doing something really important. Just to kind of throw a wrench in everybody thinking that he was the Gold Ranger. Now, the next part of this is fan theory. Nothing's been confirmed. But during this period, when Billy was saying, I was working on something important, and he actually was not the Golden Ranger, a lot of fans speculate he was creating the Turbo Ranger powers, because that's never explained in canon in Power Rangers. Where did these powers come from? The Zeo powers are supposed to get more powerful over time. But in the Turbo movie, you see Kat, Zeo Ranger 1, the Pink Ranger, she morphs. So where did the Turbo powers came from? The theory is that the project Billy was working on at the time was the Turbo powers. And if that's true, that is very, very important to this theory that Billy has something very important to do with the Master Morpher. Because if he can, in fact, not just fix things in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers or the Zordon era in general, if he can actually create a new power off of another power, if he was able to create Turbo, from Zeo, or just the Zeo crystal in general, that is very, very important. And now we're ready to move on to the second part of this, which is post-Mighty Morphin. And the first time we're starting to see some Mighty Morphin Power Rangers use their powers after Season 3, where the coins and the morphers were damaged and destroyed. So the first time we see a Power Ranger morph post-Mighty Morphin era is Adam Park, the second black Mighty Morphin Power Ranger. He morphs in space with a broken Power Morpher, and you see it, and it's a very, very good scene. He takes out the Power Morpher, shows it to Alpha 6. You can see it's damaged, it's broken. It actually looks really cool. Alpha warns Adam that he shouldn't do it, it could destroy him. Adam does it anyway, and you see a really awesome sequence. He's powered up, he's juiced up, he's ready to go for about 10 seconds, and then the powers start to fade. You can see that they're cutting in and out. You see part of the suit, you see part of Adam. It's a very cool sequence, but this is when we can confirm for the first time, no Master Morpher built yet, and the Mighty Morphin powers, at least Adam's, is not working properly. And that's important because the next time we see a morph after Adam in space, the next time we see a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger morph, the next time we see anybody from the Zordon era morph is in the very famous episode Forever Red. You have 10 Red Rangers, starting with Jason all the way up to the current Red Ranger at the time, which is Wild Force. And there's a lot of continuity issues here. There could be. Or, as Gosei would say, there's a simple explanation for that. How did some of these guys morph? Here's how it happened. Again, this is just our opinion at Generation S. Jason has his morpher, his coin. Remember that. That's his coin, his morpher, tied to him being the Red Ranger. The Tyranno Ranger, Tyrannosaurus Ranger, whatever you want to say, OG Red Ranger, that's Jason's morpher. The morpher and coin that was destroyed at the end of Season 3 is not Jason's. That is Rocky's morpher, Rocky's coin, powers that are tied to the Ninja Red Ape Zord, not the Tyrannosaurus Zord that Jason was using. That's the first issue, hopefully you agree with, that has been fixed. Second one is easy. Tommy morphs in the Zeo Ranger 5. As we established in the Turbo movie, even if it's only for 5 seconds, Turbo powers are not gone. They just were not used. They were not the best option at the time. Regardless of who built them or not, they were not the best powers to deal with Divatox. So, Tommy's morpher works just fine. That's the easiest out of the 3. The Red Turbo Ranger and TJ, that's a little tricky, but it's kind of similar to the issue we had with Jason. So, the Turbo Rangers, they lose at the end of the season. Everything's destroyed. Command Center is destroyed. They don't have access to their powers. They go into space unmorphed. That's an issue. So, how does TJ get a morpher, and how does he get the Red Turbo powers back? Let's assume that Tommy kept his morpher, just like Jason did. Tommy has an extra morpher. He gives it to TJ. They both have access to the grid. Both of their DNAs are tied to the Red Turbo Ranger. Therefore, in our opinion, that is how TJ is able to morph into the Red Turbo Ranger. So let's move on to Dino Thunder. And speaking of Tommy, this is the season that's all about Tommy being a mentor to a new generation of Rangers. Not going to go into too much detail about the season. We personally highly recommend it. We think it's a great season, especially if you dig the Zordon era stuff. There's a lot of callbacks, but also good at getting the next generation of Rangers ready. Tommy finds and is able to harness the Dino Gems. So this is how the Dino Thunder Rangers are able to have their powers or able to morph. Tommy has to have some knowledge of the morphin grid. He has to have some knowledge other than being able to pick up a morpher and be able to power up. There has to be some other knowledge. That's where we believe Billy comes into play. Again, no confirmation, but if you're hanging out with a genius for 4 or 5 years in the trenches with him, in all these battles with him, there must have been some information Tommy was able to absorb from Billy. That's why Tommy was able to harness the power of the Dino Gems in Dino Thunder. We're now moving to perhaps the most important couple of episodes about the Master Morpher, other than the actual debut of it, in Operation Overdrive. This is where things get interesting. So in Operation Overdrive, the Overdrive Rangers lose their powers, are unable to morph. The Sentinel Knight brings back the powers to some Retro Rangers, and most importantly, 2 of them to consider. Adam, he comes back as the Mighty Morphin Black Ranger, and Kira comes back as the Yellow Dino Thunder Ranger. Both of those powers are involved in the Master Morpher. Sentinel Knight is able to restore the powers to these Rangers, because last time we saw Adam, it wasn't going so well for him. His powers were fading in and out. Now he's able to battle the son of Lord Zed and Rita Repulsa. No issues with this. The other important moment in this episode is the return of Alpha 6. Adam just stores him in a warehouse in Angel Grove, but he's able to get him back, tells him what's going on with the Overdrive Rangers, and Alpha 6 actually goes into the morphing grid. You actually see the morphing grid for the first time, and then Alpha says, "I've never been inside of the grid before." And then you actually see Alpha inside the grid. You don't see him doing any work, but you see him standing inside the grid. He's confused. What would Zordon do? Sounds like a t-shirt they should make. But he's able to do it. He's able to fix it. He's able to fix the grid. He fixes the issue the Overdrive Rangers were having, and they're able to morph again. Very, very important that you see the grid. Adam knows about the grid. Alpha knows about the grid. Alpha can go into the grid, and the Overdrive Rangers are able to get their powers back. And Sentinel Knight is able to restore the powers of these previous Power Rangers. There's a lot to take in with this episode, and it's a very important episode. Also, at the conclusion, Adam says he's taking Alpha 6 back with him. And the last point I want to make about Once a Ranger, which is the name of this episode, in Operation Overdrive, Adam's using his regular Power Morpher. So again, another opportunity to see, is the Master Morpher around yet? At least to Adam, it is not an option at this time. But if that information wasn't big enough for potentially helping create the Master Morpher, let's go to Super Mega Force. So in Mega Force and Super Mega Force, we meet Gosei. He says his mentor was Zordon. In Super Mega Force, the Rangers get the legendary keys. They can morph into any Ranger at any time in a fight. That is the Master Morpher pretty much in a nutshell. And the Rangers are morphing into teams they've never even seen, never even heard of, never been on this planet before. So that team can essentially create a Master Morpher based on any team. That is certainly the foundation for what will become the Master Morpher. And in fact, the next big part of this is the Master Morpher. The Master Morpher is a Ninja Steel, Super Ninja Steel to be specific, and Tommy morphs into Black Dino Thunder, he morphs into Red Zeo, then the White Mighty Morphin Power Ranger, and finally the Green Power Ranger, all in a sequence very similar to Megaforce. Same exact kind of thing. He just yells out what he wants to be, pulls out his morpher, and off he goes. The Red Turbo Ranger was apparently cut from the script due to time constraints. Also, the Black Dino Thunder morph and fighting sequence, if you only watched the episode as it aired on TV, was not in that episode. It was actually cut also. That is available online. It's very easy to find. In fact, we have a short about it. You can check that out here on Generation S. Tommy morphing into the Black Dino Thunder Ranger. But Tommy is able to use that power and harness it. Some other things to know about this episode is you see some Rangers, some Retro Rangers as they're now called, that we've mentioned in this episode earlier. Rocky's in it, TJ's in it, Kat's in it. Kat is able to morph into the Pink Turbo Ranger via her morpher. So her morpher, the first version of her Turbo Morpher, works. Cassie, who is the second Pink Turbo Ranger, she loses her powers, confirming what we said earlier in the episode. Tommy gave his working Turbo Morpher to TJ, which kind of goes hand in hand with what we said earlier in the show, being that could one morpher be destroyed from person B but work for person A? This confirms it. So there's the rundown of the history of what might lead to a Master Morpher being created. Who has the knowledge? Who has the power? Who has the tools? Who has the talent? If you Ghostbusters fans, you'll understand that. Tommy used this Master Morpher in Ninja Steel. We haven't seen it since, but it's interesting that Kat is in that episode, Rocky's in that episode, TJ's in that episode. Some former Rangers he's worked with that maybe could have their own Master Morpher themselves. We'll discuss that in the next episode. So let's summarize what we went over quickly, because I know it was a lot. Billy repairing the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger powers, understanding the Zeo powers, and possibly creating the Turbo powers. Tommy understanding how the powers in general work, whether it be from learning from Zordon, learning from Alpha, or learning from Billy, or a combination. Tommy knows what's going on. The Sentinel Knight being able to tap into the grid, repair their powers in Operation Overdrive. Also in Overdrive, Alpha 6 going into the grid literally right after the powers are restored to the legendary Rangers. He's in the grid. He's able to repair things for the Overdrive Rangers. That's very important also. What's also important is Adam says he's taking Alpha 6 back with him. As we know in Cosmic Fury as it's coming up, or if you're listening to this afterwards, as we saw in Cosmic Fury, Alpha 6 is with Adam. But watch me be wrong and it'll be Alpha 5, not Alpha 6. But I digress. Also, the legendary keys in Megaforce. That quintessentially is a Master Morpher. So, that's to summarize everything. What's the conclusion? Well, if they're going over this way longer than we should have, our conclusion is a few people did this. We narrowed it down to 3. Billy, he knows how to repair everything. He knows how to tap into everything. Hell, his second day on the job, he was creating communicators, so he knows what's going on. Plus, he left Earth to go to Aquitar. We don't know their technology. It could be way more advanced than anything we have. So that's one thing. Number 2, Adam says he was taking Alpha 6, who's been in the grid, who knows how to tap into the power, who knows how to repair things. The legendary Ranger keys came out after this, so that's important also. So our opinion is it's a combo, especially with Cosmic Fury coming out. Adam and Alpha with Billy created the Master Morpher, and that's why they're part of SPA. What it stands for, we think Space Patrol Alpha, because Space Patrol Delta is down the road. SPA, Adam, Alpha, with the help of Billy, created the Master Morpher. Or you can just say the Morphin Masters did it, which kind of ruins everything. But we're going to go with the fun route that we think it was Adam, Alpha, with a little help of Billy. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for taking this quick journey down memory lane. We're going to do another episode about who should have a Master Morpher in the world of Power Rangers. And again, please consider subscribing. Check out our other videos. We have a nice video dedicated to Jason David Frank. We also have the top 10 Power Ranger villains of the Zordon era. We're going to do another episode on the Master Morpher. More retrospectives to come. We're going to do one on Lord Zed after Cosmic Fury. And again, please also consider that this episode is being recorded before Cosmic Fury. So everything we just said might all go down the toilet. Rocky might walk in and say he did it. We don't know. But this is the information we have up until season 30. We think it'll be a fun conversation for everybody to have. And as always, we always appreciate every time somebody listens or watches any of our videos. We appreciate you subscribing, and we'll catch you down the road next time. Have a good day.